Hello, welcome back to Story House. The book I will interpret for you today is Think Again, The Power of Knowing What You Don't Know. Think Again is not a new concept. Simply, it means learning to reflect and revisit one's thoughts. From a young age, we've known the importance of introspection, which helps us discover our shortcomings, break free from fixed mindsets, and continuously improve ourselves. This seems like a principle understood by everyone. So why did the author choose to write a book on this topic? The author of this book, Adam Grant, is a professor of organizational psychology at the Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania. He has received the school's most popular lecturer award for 7 consecutive years. Furthermore, he has been recognized as one of the 10 most influential management thinkers globally. He is also an accomplished writer, with works like Originals, totaling sales of over 2 million copies. Years of teaching and research have led Adam Grant to realize that people might not be as skilled at Think Again as they assume, and they often lack the tools for it. For instance, some individuals end up working in jobs they dislike for over a decade just to meet their parents' expectations. Their life's navigation is fixated on a single goal, and they never pause to reconsider what they truly enjoy, what suits them, and what they want to gain from their work. Eventually, they head in what appears to be the right direction, but arrive at the wrong destination. Another example. Research has shown that the more determined a mountaineer is, the more likely they encounter danger during an expedition. This is because they're determined to reach the summit at any cost, forgetting that sometimes the best action is to turn back. To a certain degree, we tend to be conservative when it comes to our mental outlook. Holding on to established beliefs often feels more comfortable than grappling with fundamental ideas. But how can we liberate ourselves from the constraints of our thoughts and truly embrace the act of think again? This forms the cornerstone of the book we're delving into today. In this book, Grant uses numerous cases to show us how people become trapped in old viewpoints and how they should approach the process of think again. And I'll provide detailed psychological analyses for each mentioned case to help you better understand the concept of think again. In the first part, we'll start from our own perspective and examine 3 typical cases with the author, exploring the factors that hinder our ability to think again and searching for ways to do so. Moving on to the second part, we'll witness an engaging debate that shows us how to pass on this power to others, inspiring more people to embrace think again. All right, let's dive into the first part. First, in this fast-changing era, we'll see how a successful entrepreneur missed out on opportunity after opportunity and eventually got left behind because he didn't think again about his strategies. Meet Mike Lazaridis, the brains behind BlackBerry phones, the founder and CEO. He was a creative thinker, always dreaming of changing the wireless communication industry, and he actually did. In 1999, BlackBerry burst onto the scene with a full keyboard and a secure email system that worked like a computer. These features propelled BlackBerry to be the smartphone leader for quite a while. Executives and Hollywood stars all wanted a BlackBerry phone. By the summer of 2009, BlackBerry had nearly half the smartphone market in the US. But in just 5 years, by 2014, BlackBerry's market share plummeted to less than 1%. So, what happened in between? In 2007, Steve Jobs introduced the first iPhone, ditching the physical keyboard and opting for a full touch screen. Back then, Lazaridis didn't see it as a threat. He thought not everyone could type on glass. Then, in 2008, the global market shifted from 2G to 3G, the internet and phones collided, and Apple and Android launched open app stores. However, Lazaridis firmly believed that phones were meant for emails and calls, not stuffed with family entertainment apps. Even at 2010, he chose to abandon instant messaging, which led him to miss out on WhatsApp's rise. In his mind, BlackBerry had always been a productivity tool, tailored for typing emails using a physical keyboard. Why wasn't Lazaridis willing to think again? According to the author, it's because BlackBerry had become a part of Lazaridis' identity. Any change will threaten his self-identity. It's like firefighters sacrificing themselves in a forest fire. They could ditch their gear for more escape time, but that thought hardly crosses their minds. Organizational psychologist Carl Vick explains, it's because tools define a firefighter's role, so dropping them triggers an identity crisis. Without tools, who are they? The same goes for Lazaridis. If BlackBerry isn't about email productivity anymore, is it still BlackBerry? If BlackBerry changes, then who is Mike Lazaridis, the creator of it all? In fact, each of us instinctively wants to refer to and replicate past successful experiences when we're working, and that's perfectly normal. However, when the external environment changes rapidly, this approach becomes quite dangerous. Because any advantage or asset, if not taken out and refreshed every now and then, can turn into a liability. So, how do we think again in the face of fast-changing circumstances? The author believes the key lies in separating the past version of you from the present version, and also separating your viewpoints from your identity. What does this mean? First, separating the past, you from the present, means daring to make mistakes and embracing the unknown. Many people fear making mistakes and often adopt a mindset of preferring no outcome over facing problems. If we think again about the impact of making mistakes, we'll realize that another meaning of making mistakes is actually growth. Just like Ray Dalio, the founder of Bridgewater Associates, says, if you don't look back at your past self and think, wow, I was really naive a year ago, then you probably haven't learned much in the past year. So we should relish moments of making mistakes, as they offer us the opportunity to correct our existing beliefs. This signifies a reduction in erroneous perspectives compared to the past. We're constantly iterating and upgrading ourselves. Next, separating your viewpoints from your identity means defining your identity by your values rather than your opinions. The author argues that the best form of self-identification stems from alignment with your values. Who you are should be defined by your values. You can be someone curious for knowledge or someone who values fairness. Those values are less likely to change easily. Therefore, new viewpoints, like think again about phone features, won't threaten your sense of identity as long as they align with your values. On the contrary, you shouldn't consider yourself a spokesperson for certain opinions. For instance, saying I'm against global warming or I'm a pro-physical keyboard person is unreliable because opinions can change or become outdated anytime. If you tie unstable viewpoints to your self-worth, you're hindering the process of think again. If the previous case was an example of what happens if not think again, the following case serves as a textbook example of successful think again. Without further ado, let's delve into how a seemingly unlikely presidential candidate turned their imposter syndrome into an advantage, ultimately performing very well. In psychology, there's a term called imposter syndrome, where someone achieves a lot but feels like they're a fraud, undeserving of their accomplishments. In simpler terms, it's a lack of confidence. Halla Tomasdottir is one individual who battled with this syndrome. Halla is an accomplished entrepreneur and a former presidential candidate in Iceland. At 2015, she unexpectedly received a call informing her that there was an online petition urging her to run for president of Iceland. Her first reaction wasn't excitement but self-doubt. She wondered, how could I become president? From an outsider's perspective, Halla was definitely qualified to run for president. Despite her lack of political experience, she was an exceptional leader, helping others and co-founding an investment company in 2007. When the global financial crisis hit in 2008, Iceland faced one of the most severe financial crises in history. Yet, Halla's outstanding leadership and decision-making skills guided her company successfully through the storm. However, despite all this, she hesitated for a long time. Eventually, at the urging and persuasion of friends and family, she decided to enter the race. Over 20 candidates were running, and being a lesser-known candidate meant that her journey would be challenging. One formidable competitor was Davio Oddsson. In stark contrast to Halla's humility, Davio was overly confident. He believed he possessed substantial experience and knowledge, making him perfectly fit for the presidency. However, he was recognized by Time magazine as one of the 25 people responsible for the global financial crisis. He was even forced to resign as the head of the central bank, requiring a regulation stating that any institution's leader must hold at least a master's degree in economics. Now let's look at the election results. Despite Hala lacking significant media coverage and a sufficient campaign budget, she secured over a quarter of the votes on election day, ranking second. While she didn't win the presidency, she triumphed over the overly confident Davio Odson, who came in fourth with less than 14% of the votes. This was a remarkable achievement, propelling her to fame. Author Grant even invited her to share her experience in his class. Hala reflected that her imposter syndrome became her driving force. Throughout the campaign, her self-doubt led to a deeper understanding. She used to think self-doubt weakened her, but now she saw it differently. Doubt didn't question her abilities. It signaled the need for tool and method improvement. When other candidates stuck with conventional media like television and newspapers, Hala's uncertainty about tools prompted her to rethink her campaign strategy. She embraced social media, engaging directly with people online, and even conducting live interactions on Facebook late at night. She used video software to connect with younger voters, resonating strongly with them and gaining more support. We don't need to have imposter syndrome, where we constantly doubt ourselves, but we can learn a key lesson from it. It's about finding the right balance between overconfidence and excessive humility. The sweet spot is confident humility. This means believing in your ability to achieve a goal in the future while staying open to questioning your current methods, just like Hala did. Arrogance blinds us to our weaknesses. Humility acts as a mirror reflecting those weaknesses. Confident humility acts as a corrective lens, empowering us to overcome our shortcomings. In the cases we've discussed, we've focused on how individuals think again affects their approaches. But what about a group of people? Can that be even more effective? Let's look at one final case where a conflicted team harnessed the power of rethinking to create an Oscar-winning animation. In 1995, Pixar released their first feature-length film, Toy Story, which raked in $360 million globally and topped the US box office that year. But the company's founders aimed for more. So, in the year 2000, they invited director Brad Bird to drive change. Soon, Brad presented a bold idea, creating a superhero movie using cutting-edge animation to realistically render explosions, human hair, and intricate details. The technical team at Pixar thought this would take a decade and $500 million to achieve. It's impractical, they believed. But Brad was determined not to give up. He assembled a challenger team, composed of unconventional members who didn't fit the typical mold. These weren't animation experts. Instead, they were the ones who felt out of place because their better methods weren't utilized. They were critical, questioning, and detail-oriented. Their goal was unanimous: to create an extraordinary masterpiece. They brainstormed to find cost-effective alternatives for expensive technology and devised creative solutions for complex problems. After 4 years, Pixar released The Incredibles, the most complex film in their history. It cost less than $100 million to make and garnered over $600 million in box office revenue, even winning the Oscar for Best Animated Feature. Looking back, Brad seemingly did nothing extraordinary. He brought together a team of critical thinkers, those who were skeptical and challenging. Normally, we seek harmony within a team, trying to avoid conflicts. However, Brad chose a different approach. He cultivated a network of challenging individuals, which might seem counterproductive to team development, but it produced exceptional results. Why? Because the absence of conflict doesn't guarantee harmony. Sometimes it leads to indifference. Imagine if every member nodded in agreement without expressing their thoughts. Is that truly beneficial? Not really. Silence, or lack of input, disregards the value of each person's viewpoint. Having only one voice in a team isn't conducive to think again. On the other hand, debating with someone over viewpoints isn't disrespectful. It's a sign of respect. It means valuing their perspective enough to engage in the discussion. When someone's opinion isn't important, there's no need for an argument. It's important to note that the author isn't saying all conflicts are good or that having conflicts always aids in rethinking. The key lies in the type of conflict. Psychologist Kevin Edwards categorizes two types of conflict: relationship conflict and task conflict. Relationship conflict involves personal friction and hostility, focusing on the person, not the issue. Task conflict revolves around ideas and viewpoints, focusing on the matter, not the individual. Brad's team, despite being composed of strong-willed individuals, had task conflicts, accompanied by debates and disagreements. These conflicts were about ideas, not personal attacks. They freely expressed various viewpoints without attacking each other personally. After resolving differing opinions, they unified their direction and continued working until new challenges arose, sparking further debates. However, managing strong-willed individuals isn't easy. Task conflicts can turn into relationship conflicts if not handled carefully. How can we break free from mental constraints and achieve rethinking? First, don't abandon rethinking to protect your self-identity. Separate yourself from past views, forming a habit of rethinking. Second, when self-doubt arises, see it as a growth opportunity. Trust in your ability to learn while questioning your current solutions and be confidently humble. Finally, don't fear conflicts. Embrace challenges from critics. Although relationship conflicts are uncomfortable, task conflicts often facilitate rethinking. With that said, let's explore how to encourage others to think again. This is crucial and closely tied to our lives. For instance, when persuading a leader to accept a proposal, convincing parents to avoid unnecessary health products, or advising children to limit computer use, it might seem tough to make them see your perspective. This is when you need to inspire others to rethink. One effective way to make others reconsider is through debates. Now, let's shift our focus to how debates can play a crucial role in encouraging people to think again. So, let's dive into an exciting debate to explore effective ways of prompting others to rethink. In February 2019 in San Francisco, renowned British debater Harry faced off against an AI debater named Deborah, developed by IBM, on whether the government should subsidize early childhood education. Deborah argued for government subsidies, while Harry argued against them. Before the debate, the audience heavily favored Deborah, the AI debater, with her support at 79%. However, after the debate, Deborah's support dropped to 60%, and human debater Harry's support increased from 13% to 30%, ultimately securing his victory. Harry managed to sway some audience members to reconsider their stance. How did he do it, and what can we learn about the art of debating? Deborah had previous experience debating humans, and her performance was impressive, often outshining humans in various aspects. Her knowledge base consists of 400 million articles, mostly from authoritative sources, and she also uses an argument detection engine to pinpoint key points, define topics, and weigh evidence. Deborah, who supported the idea, spoke first. She gave strong evidence from academic, social, and professional sources to show how subsidizing early childhood education in the U.S. can help kids overcome challenges linked to poverty. In response to Deborah's strong arguments, Harry didn't rush. Instead, he calmly presented his viewpoint and opposed Deborah. He acknowledged their common ground on poverty issues, affirmed the validity of studies cited by Deborah, and said, "I believe our differences aren't as substantial as they seem." Harry's approach is enlightening. When aiming to persuade someone, many of us tend to directly present our views. For instance, if you want to convince a friend to smoke less, you might say, "Smoking is harmful, and look at so-and-so's ruined lungs." While this seems logical, the other person might not agree and think you don't understand their reasons for smoking. To encourage others to rethink, we must rethink our approach too. Essentially, we need to practice active listening and empathy. This doesn't mean you're endorsing their viewpoint, but you're trying to understand their feelings and thoughts. This approach brings both sides to the same level for a constructive discussion, rather than a contest of superiority. By acknowledging shared perspectives and what you've learned from them, you not only display openness, but also lower their defenses, prompting deeper exploration of their viewpoints. This approach achieves the goal of encouraging rethinking. Continuing, Harry, on the contrary, presented his counterarguments. Since he couldn't match Deborah's wealth of information like the AI, he provided two strong reasons against subsidizing early childhood education. Firstly, he mentioned that government funds are limited, and there are other pressing projects that need assistance. Early childhood education might not be the top priority. Secondly, even with subsidies, early childhood education would not be completely free, and poor children might still struggle to afford quality education. Now, let's see what Harry did right in this round of debate. When negotiating with others, do you feel like the more reasons you give, the more likely you'll tilt the balance in your favor? Well, it turns out that experts in negotiation often provide fewer reasons. An experiment showed that when offering one reason, 6% of participants donated money, but when giving two reasons, the donation rate dropped to 3%. More arguments create more attacks, triggering resistance. Harry's strategy was effective. To make others reconsider their stance, we must first listen actively and empathize, not necessarily agreeing but seeking to understand their viewpoint. This allows both sides to communicate on the same level and reduces defensiveness, encouraging deeper exploration of their own beliefs. Moving forward, let's explore how to encourage others to rethink. Take debates as an example. In a debate between Harry, a human, and the AI Deborah on subsidizing early childhood education, Harry won over some audience members, making them reconsider their stance. How did he do it? The art of negotiation teaches us valuable lessons. Instead of bombarding with multiple arguments, focusing on fewer strong points is more effective. Too many arguments dilute each point's impact and can be hard to explain. Quality matters more than quantity, especially when the topic is important. Too many arguments might lead to more resistance and counter-arguments. Harry's approach involved posing questions to encourage independent thinking. He didn't solely use statements to counterattack. He stated his viewpoint, that early childhood education is good, but questioned why it necessarily needs government subsidies. He asked if there's a shortage of early childhood education in the U.S., whether it truly helps the most vulnerable, and why it's expensive. Questioning prompts self-reflection without necessarily imposing our views on others. It allows people to open up and admit they might be wrong, initiating the cycle of rethinking. In summary, debating is like an unscripted dance, requiring coordination and adjustment to your partner's rhythm. If you're too forceful, your partner resists. But if you adapt your steps to match theirs, you're more likely to find harmony in the rethinking process. That's all for this book. In summary, the first part discussed the barriers to rethinking through 3 cases and how to empower rethinking. For instance, separating your current self from your past self, accepting the unknown, and embracing change are key to breaking free from mental constraints. Balancing confidence and self-doubt is vital for effective rethinking. The second part used a captivating debate between a human and AI to highlight methods for encouraging others to think again. When convincing others, active listening and empathizing help to create a receptive atmosphere. Providing fewer strong arguments is more effective than overwhelming with many weak ones. Asking questions prompts self-reflection and aids in generating new perspectives. Rethinking isn't complex. It's a valuable practice, akin to annual health checkups, helping us stay aware of changes and adapt. Portuguese poet Fernando Pessoa once said, "The greatest difference between individuals lies in whether you've truly lived over 10,000 days or merely lived one day, repeating it over 10,000 times." Rethinking offers this valuable insight, making us live more consciously and helping us navigate when to advance, when to retreat, and when to embrace our evolving selves. Congratulations on completing another book. Thank you for your support. Subscribe to our channel and share with friends and family. Thank you and goodbye.